Okay, so our next speaker, we actually met with Lisa, I'm thinking maybe 4 years ago now. Lisa is a little bit of a veteran when it comes to conferences. We've been to several of her conferences, and I've got to say they are always really, really good, very insightful, fantastic speakers. And Kimberly is always invited to speak as well at our conferences, and everyone is very welcome in her community. So I'm just going to say a few words about Lisa before introducing her on. Dr. Lisa Noland is a sex historian and a secular apologist who offers physical, mental, psychological, and public health reasons to delay sexual initiation. She does this through Sex Proof Your Kids seminars for parents and religious people and secular professionals. In these seminars, Lisa exposes bad sex education, but also promotes the good. Sex comes at a cost, but most sexual active kids have little idea that this is the case. So Lisa she is the CEO of Marriage, Sex and Culture Group in London. She has done a lot of work. They are a Christian group, but they welcome everyone who is appalled by this cultural Marxism, and they want to get involved in the pushback. So I'm not going to say anything more now. I'm going to pass you on to Lisa. So can we have a massive round of applause for Lisa Noland? Woo!
Thank you. I'm absolutely delighted to be here with you. I feel it's an honor to share this platform with PCP, Kim and her amazing team who are way out there and saying, wakey, wakey, alarm, alarm, as so many are simply clueless, and they are missing in action and asleep at the wheel, in my view. Now, yes. If I may, I have been sharing this content with various, and it tends to blow people away, and I'm so sorry. So if I would like to pray a blessing over you folks, because some of this is appalling stuff. I've just been doing it too long, so I'm immured, but so if I may, if it's not your thing, that's fine. Just think happy thoughts. Lord, thank you so much for each person here. You know where we've come from. You are worried about what we are worried about. And Lord, particularly what is happening with our children and grandchildren. So we lift this time to you. Lord, I ask for peace, for protection. I pray against any malignant forces. You know this stuff is evil, but Lord, you want us to go through the pain barriers so that we can be better equipped to help our kids and grandkids. Thank you. Amen. Okay, folks. So this is me. Thank you so much. Please come back to me because it's so fascinating. I have people say to me, I have never seen such awful material. And I go, really? See, for me, all this is a war of awareness. What I think is normal, and oh yeah, everyone knows about this. Other people are going, what? What are you talking about? Right. So anyway, so I will, and also if you would like a PDF of this, email me. And again, make it work for you. If you like this, you don't like that, that's fine. I don't care. What we most want to do is up our game. Me in my loop, you in each one of yours for our kids and grandkids. That is the point. Yes. So. Right, I am rubbish at all this. Now, Kim told me how to do this, right. Okay, so this is me. Let's see. So, yes, and then this is one clip. It's appalling, but there we are. Okay.
Happy Pride, everybody!
Happy Pride!
Who here knows what gay pride means?
It means where, like, all the gay people, transgender, lesbian, bisexual people gather up and celebrate.
That's absolutely right. It's a celebration of sexual diversity. So I'm not gay, but I'm a gay ally. Are you gay allies?
Definitely.
Great answer. What does it mean to come out of the closet?
When you come out of the closet, it means like when you're playing hide and seek and you're hiding in the closet and then someone finds you and then you have to come out of the closet and have to be it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What do you think about gay marriage?
I just think it's normal marriage.
Right.
My auntie, I know that she's gay. She hasn't married yet. And I'm just wondering if I am going to be her flower girl.
And you know what? When you find out that your auntie is going to marry a woman and your number one concern is if you're going to be the flower girl, you have your priorities straight.
Woo!
Do you think it would be cool to have two moms?
Yes. If the house is full of girls and there's no boys in sight,
Yeah.
you don't have to flush the toilet for the boys.
So many advantages. What would it be like to have two dads?
It would be crazy. It depends on how their personality is. If they're a party animal, then it would be obviously crazy.
Any parent who's a party animal would be crazy.
Yeah.
Can you name any gay celebrities?
Ellen DeGeneres.
Uh-huh. What about Neil Patrick Harris?
Who's that?
Do we know Ricky Martin?
No.
Ricky Martin is a singer, and now he's a gay icon. A gay icon is someone who's revered by the gay community.
Lady Gaga?
Yes. Anderson Cooper?
I might have heard of him.
Jodie Foster?
I've heard of him. I cross my fingers. I'm not lying.
Jodie Foster is a woman, and she made me question my sexuality when I was a child because I liked her so much.
Oh.
And she was nude in the film Now. Not that I remember watching it several times as a child.
Wow.
Guys, I'm so impressed with you. Remember, what are we to the gay community? We are...
Gay icons.
Sure.
I'm an ally. Maybe I could be an icon.
I mean, everybody should aspire to grow up and be a gay icon.
That's what Pride Day is all about.
You're right. See you at Pride, everybody.
You know, son, you're not a kid anymore.
Oh, no. I go to health class, Dad. I already know all this stuff.
Well, they don't teach you about everything in health class. Okay, Mr. Smarty Pants? So just listen. When boys and girls get a little older, they start getting interested in one another, right?
You know, and non-binary people, agendered, intergendered, FTX, gender fluid people.
What?
There's more than just boys and girls now, Dad. And they're not girls. They're women.
Yeah, okay, sure. Well, my point is that sex is it's a very important decision.
How are you defining sex? Sex is different things to different people.
I guess when a penis goes into a vagina?
What if there's two men or two women or more?
More?
How would you define sex with multiple simultaneous partners? Or what if somebody's undergone genital reconstruction or is intersex?
No, but I'm just talking about normal, straight...
Normal? Come on, Dad.
Okay, here we go. Let me ask you this. Son, are you attracted to women?
Yes, but I'm young.
Is Emily a woman?
Biologically.
Okay, you're attracted to women. Emily's a woman. So if you were to have sex with Emily...
I wouldn't just have sex with Emily. We'd have to make that decision together. Homecoming's not an excuse to ignore consent.
I'm not saying to ignore consent. I never said ignore consent. You and Emily, right, consensually decide to have sex.
Vaginal?
Yes, vaginal.
Just two of us.
How many people do you want? Yes, just the two of you, Colin.
And I'm playing the traditional male role?
Go to homecoming.
You seem like you really wanted to talk about this.
No, I don't want to talk about anything. Ever again.
So I can go.
Please do. Out. Thank you. Don't forget your corsage.
Hey, Dad.
Yeah.
How do I look?
You look very handsome, son.
That's gender coding, but...
Get out of my house!
Okay, so right now, what I'm going to be talking about, okay, so let's just know what the time, okay, I have 6 minutes. Fine, we'll kind of fly through these. Again, email me if you'd like a copy. I'm particularly focused on CSE. Other things are very bad, but CSE is being rolled out and it is mandatory now in many schools. Now, some of you, I've gotten pushback from folks who say, no, well, my daughter-in-law is RSC teacher or whatever, and she doesn't say any of this. Lucky you. and lucky those kids and lucky your daughter-in-law. But if you are in a school that the activists have gotten into and are making it free and great to be LGBT and explore your sexuality, this is what we're talking about. Okay, so I'm looking at examples, analysis, and huge negative consequences for youngsters who are sexually active. I don't care what they do with whom. Any child who's sexually active, they pay. And that, for me, is the most obscene thing. Sex comes with its own price tag. Okay, so here we go. Okay, to think about, Miriam Grossman, fabulous. She's written excellent things. Our kids are being taught they can safely play with fire while the offices of doctors and therapists are filled with those who have been burned inside and out. The kids pay, and the kids pay far higher than we will. If we go out and do what youngsters are encouraged to do, we'll pay too, but not nearly as high. They pay more because their whole bodies, their minds, etc., they are far more vulnerable physiologically, biologically, anatomically. Right, so what appalls the targeting of our young, it's a revolution, folks. This is not about us. We are all headed to the nursing home. This is about our children and grandchildren. They are remaking the concept of heteronormativity for tiny, tiny ones. That's, if you listen to the activists, and I do, because it's really important to know what they're thinking. And it's all about the kids. It's not about us. I've been tracking this pansexual revolution for decades. I've been wrong once. I never saw the trans revolution succeeding in this country. I thought folks here were more sensible than that. I totally got that wrong. Okay, so what adults do is their business. This is about vulnerable, immature youngsters, and it's not right or fair in my view. Known and trusted public authorities are missing in action and asleep at the wheel for various reasons. At least Dorothy knew she wasn't in Kansas. Sadly, many of our leaders, you wonder, have your servers all been down for the past decade? See, I don't listen for what people say, I listen for what they don't say. What they don't say, in my view, is culpable. Okay, so our RSC, again, folks, if you're lucky enough to have children, grandchildren in good schools, thank God for it. But what we are seeing is once activists get involved and want to remake, let's make it the most progressive, up-to-date, whatever, good luck in stopping it. So my gang, I have about 300, please email me if you're at all interested. I track what's going on around the country. Some schools are still good. Some schools, some schools, oh dear, and some schools are the pits. And that, in my view, that is the truth. But what we want the best for every child. One LGBTQ campaigning group claimed very proudly, so they were in 6,000 UK primary and secondary schools. Now, the other thing is there are many factors. So people will come back, oh, Lisa, you don't know what you're talking about. What about da-da-da-da? Fair enough, I totally get that. There is porn, there's social media, peer pressure, and family breakdown. All of them, in my view, play roles. But for some kids, it's more, for some kids, it's less. But the CSC, in my view, is toxic. Okay, one of the main things is teens aren't adults. Actually, children are not teens. Teens are not adults. Different age stage. That's what I'm constantly doing. Do the biology. Do your homework. Most of this CSC stuff is flat earth, science-free information, as it were. Okay, so in the main, it is minimizes or censors out politically incorrect facts, public health stats. It's flat earth biology. I read this stuff and I go, how many GCSEs do you have? The authors, it's so poorly written, some of it. It's appalling. And these kids are taking this advice. That's the obscene thing. Okay, sins of omission, what they don't tell kids, sins of commission, stop. No one needs to know that, and distortion. So in my view, I believe in great sex ed, But CSE is neither comprehensive, and it's not very good on the educational front. It's not even good on the sex front. See, I do believe in giving kids the best so they know what's going on. CSE is not that. Okay, so are we surprised? Over half of recorded abuse is child on child. Police say access to violent porn and smartphones has fueled the rise of, and now it makes over 50%. This is for 10s to 17-year-olds. This is obscene in my view. RSE was introduced into schools in 2019. Explicit images and tips for doing it safely. Folks, I'm not going to have time to show you this. If you want to see, I'm with my computer over there at lunch if you want to see some examples. Or email me. Or say, no, Lisa, you're not right. And I'll say, please, tell me why I'm wrong. Make me happy. Make my day. But sadly, the stuff I'm tracking, it's out there. And in my view, the leaders are simply not able to engage properly. You put the images in front of them from an early age, and it is show and tell, go and do. Monkey see, monkey do. And that is what we're seeing. So here are some examples. We'll just start. Yes, you've seen that. All about me, shout out and name private body parts. 12-year-olds are being taught about anal sex. 9-year-olds are told to masturbate for homework, of course, except for their little ones at school. The images weren't blurred. Oh, no, of course not. And by the way, we can't show this sort of thing on television. But our children are being shown the full images, okay? I'll finish with, is that book, can you lift up the book there? Yes, this is one of the, and I'll finish on that. Welcome to Sex. Thank you so much, madam. Okay, this woman, she's an LGBT activist. She said her 8-year-old was fine with this material. Now, folks, this is new. Do you see the cute little girl on the right? She's amputated. The amputation and sexuality realm is now coming to the fore. Now this book is for 10s to 15s. And people who say, excuse me, why are you doing this? They're called all sorts of names, etc. But what I'd like to end with is, so we've noticed about the amputee, and that's a whole sexual paraphilia. Youngsters are being groomed. That is a case of grooming. See, youngsters go, okay, well, it doesn't exactly float my boat, but okay. But the other thing is, this is perfect propaganda. Perfect. Cartoon drawings, light breezy tone, little bits of happy, naughty fun. That's how this thing has gotten so far. And our good folks, and again, well done you, you're here and you're willing to push back. I give secular reasons why, what you can say to your head teacher, why are you showing this sort of thing to youngsters? Excuse me, shame on you. Now, what I also do is I give you the hard biological and anatomical reasons, facts. It's like grenades. You lob them at the head teachers. You say, why are you doing this? Don't you know, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So anyway, thank you so much. You've been a fabulous audience. Email me. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Lisa. That was very informative, brilliant. As she said, you can have a copy of her information if you so wish. So, yeah, that was brilliant. We are going to have our next speaker on now. So our next speaker was fighting against the sex education in England back in 2019. His group was actually demonized by the media for being homophobic, etc. So, the media love to do that, don't they? If you talk about things and you push back about things that the government are trying to put out there, they will demonize you on anything. So, without further ado, I'm just going to bring on our next speaker, Azhar Mahmood. Woo! Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, for being here today. First of all, I'd like to thank Kim and the PCP group. You guys have been absolutely amazing. Congratulations on your first conference, and I wish there's many, many more to come. Well done, guys. Right, so change doesn't just roll in on the wheels of inevitability. It takes hard work, it takes sacrifice, and it takes total dedication. We must learn to fight for our rights and our freedom. We must learn to keep our backs straight. Only a person with a bent back gets ridden. And you guys, have absolutely proven that. So I like to go back to 2019 when I came into the campaign. So SRE was introduced in 2000 under the Children's Learning and Skills Act. So it's been around since 2000, but most of us parents here, like Lisa says, we were sleeping on the wheel. We didn't know about it. In 2019, when the Birmingham parents started to protest, we didn't protest because we were against, sex education or anything like that. Our children are coming home telling the parents, little girls at the age of 7, 6, 5, as young as 4-year-olds were coming home telling their parents that they want to become a boy. And boys were coming home telling their mothers that we want to become girls. And I heard many stories from friends, from immediate family, and from people I would meet where boys would come home at the age of 4, 5, 6, 7, primary age children, and they'd want to put on their mother's clothes, wear their mother's nail varnish. And when the parents would ask the children, where did this come from? They'd say, well, our teacher told us. She said, you could be a male in a female's body, and you could be a female in a male's body. Now, the parents got concerned, they were really worried, and they started to go to the schools, and they wanted to find out what's being taught. The schools didn't want to know, they didn't want to listen to us, so we started to knock on the doors of the MPs and the councillors. We weren't getting any support at all. We had no choice, we started the protests. When we started the protests, now, I want to just mention something here. There's something very important I want to mention to everybody here. The importance of unity. How we Birmingham parents did it. And we were very, very fortunate. I come from a multicultural community in Edgbaston, Birmingham. And when I was growing up, we had the white community, the Sikh community, we had people from all backgrounds. And everybody had humanity. Everybody loved each other. My father left us when I was about 5 years old, so my mother brought us up on her own. I was quite fortunate. My grandfather came around when I was about 7, 8 years old, and he sort of helped us out. When the rest of the community found out my father's left, what they'd done was they started to bring food to our house. And they were offering food to my mother because they heard that her husband had left and there were 6 children. My mother was a very proud person. She never accepted the food. She always returned the food. But what she did accept was any type of help from the community. There used to be this elderly person. He was a white gentleman and, very classy gentleman. He had one of them James Cagney hats. And he used to smoke this pipe with tobacco in it. The old school one, and he had this elk-hound, and it was a beautiful elk-hound, grey. I think he was from the Spitz breed because he had one of them curly tails. And he would walk past us, and he'll always stop, and he'll say, "Hello, dear, how are you?" I was about 5 years old, and my other siblings were quite young as well. And we sort of gave him that nickname. We used to call him Hello Dear. Every time we used to see him from a distance walking down, we used to say, "Oh, it's Hello Dear." And he'll stop by and he'll pull out 10 pence and he'll give it to each one of his children. And he'll give us a hug. And he repeated that for many years. My mother, as a single parent, she didn't know how to get things done, especially when it came to repairing the house and this and that and everything. So she'd go to the local school. The headmaster at the school was a Scotsman, lovely gentleman, the last of the real gentlemen. And he didn't know, how to help her. But you know what he did instead? On his lunch break, he'll come around and he'll do repairs in the house on his lunch break. And I'll stand and I'll watch him. Can you imagine that? Lovely people. And the whole community was like that. That's how we grew up. Fast forwarding now to 2019, when our campaign starts, I was abroad when I found out that there was a little girl that came home, a lovely little girl, and she told her mother that they're teaching her in school that 2 guys can get married and have children. So she came home and she told her mother that, Mom, that isn't true, is it? You have to get married, don't you, to a woman. A man has to get married to a woman. And her mother said, so, where did you learn this? So she told her mother that this is what they're teaching us in school. So I received a telephone call while I was abroad. I was attending a wedding. So I told her, Mrs., this is what you need to do. You need to go to the school. You need to find out what exactly is being taught here. And, speak to the head teachers. She called me back the next day after she had spoken with the school, and she said they're not really interested in, telling us what's going on and everything. So I told her, well, you need to get some more people together. Get some people together, go back to the school, and then basically start, raising your voices and your concerns. So that happened. There was about 15, 20 mothers that got together, and they started to basically raise their concerns. School wasn't having any of it. What the school did was basically forcefully kicked off the mothers off the school premises and then said that we don't want you on the school premises. By then, I had returned. When I had returned to the UK and I came back to the community, I found that a lot of my friends and that, they had created 3 groups, a group A, a group B, and a group C. And what they did was, the group A basically was sitting around a table and they were looking at everything that was being taught and how they could fight against it. And then you had the group C that were running to the school. We had spokesmen that were going to the school, speaking to the head teachers, speaking to the teachers. Slowly, we probably had about 1,000 parents standing with us. Yeah? Thank you very much. We had about 1,000 parents standing with us. That more or less the whole of the community had come together in 2-3 weeks. And it had been years since we sort of seen that unity. It was absolutely amazing. Once we all got together, we started to put pressure on the schools. We started to do our research, and when we done our research, at the time, SRE, it wasn't mandatory, it wasn't compulsory. So parents had the option to have their children, it didn't need to be taught. It didn't become compulsory, I think, until 2019. And it didn't change to RSE until 2017, because they wanted to basically emphasize on the relationships part. So anyway, we had laws, the European Convention on Human Rights. Every parent has a legal right to educate their children in conformity to their religious and philosophical convictions. And that was reincorporated into the Human Rights Act, I think in 1998. So we had these laws, but why weren't the schools listening to us? We got the governors together, we got the MPs, the councillors. We put so much pressure on the school. After 2 months of fighting hard, we got rid of that program. After 2 months of fighting, this is where I take my hat off to Kim and the PCP, who have been doing it for 3 long years now. 5 long years. I've only been around for about 3 years, isn't he? Yeah, so 5 long years. 2 months after fighting The whole of the area went into hibernation. Everybody was exhausted. We didn't see anybody for about 3 weeks because every single day for those 2 months, we were getting together, we were eating together, drinking together. I gave up work for about 6 months just so I can learn all the legislation, the laws, the policies, and exactly where this was coming from. When I went right down to the roots of where this program was coming from, where this type of education was coming from, it's called the Prussian education system. And it starts in 1806 when Napoleon defeats the Prussians in the Battle of Jena. So the Prussians sort of analyzed what was happening and why they lost and how they lost. So they realized the best way, so basically what was happening was, if there was 1,000 of Napoleon's soldiers and 100 of the Prussians realized, okay, we're going to get our butts kicked in. So they'd run. Now, the Prussians wanted to change that. So what they'd decided was to create a program to psychologically work on the soldiers' minds. So the key proponent was Wilhelm Wundt. He was a psychoanalyst of the time. And he was given this task. I think it was 30 years later or 20 years later or so, they used that on the soldiers. It was successful. They totally submitted. So the Prussians said, why shall we stop here? If we can control the military, we can control the whole of the population. So what they decided to do was work on the children. Now, how do you work on the children? Most of the children were home educated. John Taylor Gatto, who was a teacher for 30 years and won many awards for the best teacher of the year, he says children grew up with natural skills. Then you had to cook, then you had to hunt, then you had to build. Reading and writing, those skills they acquired at home. It only takes 50 hours to teach a child to read, write, and count. So why is it after 13 years of school, children still can't speak proper English or, Right. So this is a Prussian education system. People feel that they're depriving the children of a quality education by not sending them to school. Statistically, if you look at it, home-educated children do far better than children that go to schools. So yes, they started to work on, okay, all the children are being home-educated, so how do they indoctrinate those children? By making schooling compulsory. Sorry, Kim, how long have I got? Sorry? Oh, okay. So basically, by 1870, it became compulsory in America. By 1880, it was compulsory here. I'll finish off by saying the most important message I did want to give today is, the unity. As long as we unite, we come together, we can achieve miracles. And we all are the same. If you study genealogy, and you study the bloodlines, we all come from the same places. We've just been traveling from one side of the world to the other side. We all come from the same places. The word German comes from the word Karman, and Karman is a place in Persia. The word Persia comes from the name Perseus. Perseus was the mythological son of Zeus. The ginger hair and the red hair, the genes and the bloodlines have been traced back to Persia. My own family tree comes from Persia as well. Although my parents, my grandparents, and great-grandparents come from Kashmir, but my family tree comes from Persia. We're all the same. We need to unite. The only way we can win this, back in 2019, my main focus was on mass withdrawals from schools. Because just like any other business, schools are businesses. You boycott, they get out of business, they don't like losing a penny, And they have to change the legislation. They have to put a stop to this flipping horror. So if we come together, we can achieve miracles, just like we've seen with the PCP. So please, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Azhar, for that speech. He's an encyclopedia of knowledge, Azhar is, and he has done a lot of brilliant work, and we're proud for him to be by us, next to us. So I just want to... Thank you. I just want to sort of touch on what Azhar was saying about, we're all the same. We all come from the same place. Unity. Now, the government and the mainstream media, they really try and promote differences, as in, like, they really try and get us fighting against each other, disagreeing, because that way they can control us. If we're all fighting amongst each other, then we're going to be easily controlled. So, we need to all come together. We are the people. So thank you, Azhar, for that. So, our next speaker, Anna Loutfi, she sends her apologies. She can't make today due to a family illness. So what we are going to do instead is put a really good video about Anna Loutfi. I just want to introduce what she's about quickly. She, along with the Bad Law Project, were facilitating court cases against the Departmental for Education with regard to this sex education in all our schools. Now, quite a famous case that she's been doing is Claire Page. A lot of you may have already known about that. It did make the papers. But we are going to play this video, short video clip of her, and I hope you enjoy that. Okay.
Why don't you just come out with it and tell us about some of the things that you found are being taught to children that you thought were particularly contentious, and why you think they're contentious?
Yes, so the reason that I was somewhat concerned is because my daughter returned from a lesson on consent delivered by an outside provider. And she explained that in that day, she hadn't only learnt about consent. She'd been told that we live in a heteronormative world. That was described as a very bad thing that we need to get away from. And that the solution for that was being sex positive in your attitude to relationships.
So I'm going to stop you there. So you've mentioned relationships in the context of sex, but we know that relationships education is ostensibly different from sex education because you can pull your kid out of one and not the other. So you're already blurring them up as you speak, but that's because this is the nature of the beast that you're fighting.
Well, yes, I think in some ways you could say that at DFE and policy level there has been a little bit of preparation to maybe keep it a little unclear to parents, either by design or by accident, but it certainly at policy level isn't very helpful. Some things that my daughter has been taught in relationships education very much sound like sex education to me, and then some things that I've been asked to withdraw, for example, the lesson on consent was described as sex education, which I could withdraw her from. But actually consent, you might think, was a relationship topic. So it's all very muddled and hard to navigate.
And you didn't think to withdraw your child from consent lessons because
I didn't. I thought the likelihood was that they would be talking about the legal framework of consent and maybe some emotional aspects to that. And it seems like a sensible topic to discuss amongst teenagers. So, no, I didn't withdraw her, but I was worried about the fact that she was being taught something that was ideological. So being told to be sex positive, well, it's very hard not to say that sex positivity is a political perspective. It describes the way you should approach relationships. It's largely contrary to religious belief, for example, and it draws on all sorts of academia and quite contentious ideas, which I know a lot of parents wouldn't agree with. So if it's contentious, it's political, and you shouldn't be advancing or promoting a particular vision, one kind of vision to children. So that's what sort of set me researching a little bit. What actually does this charity mean when they come to tell my child, don't be heteronormative and make sure you're sex positive? What are they training her to think and
what
do?
What are the implications of these positions? Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I therefore had a look at the website of the provider, and there they had some example lesson plans. It's important to say this isn't what my daughter was taught, but this lesson plan is there waiting on their website to be used, either by children who come visiting the website for more information or by teachers who are being encouraged to borrow this free resource. And so if I just read this out, for example, so activity 3, this is based on the actual lesson plan asks children to watch a Netflix show called Sex Education, funnily enough. It's an 18 plus show. And
the children being asked to watch this are
how
old?
Well, they teach from children from year 7 upwards, so from 11 upwards.
Right.
This particular resource on their website, they said suggested age of 16. But they're asking them to watch an 18 plus movie in order to complete the tasks. And one task was talking about sex and what you want sexually has the potential to be awkward because we don't get much practice doing it. The more we practice something, the easier it gets. With that in mind, write down 1. A list of phrases that could be related to sex, e.g. I like it when you ... or would you like to try ... And then 2, a list of words that could relate to sex, e.g. stroke, wet, hard, etc. And then they ask the kids, once you've had at least 10 on each list, or you have at least 10 on each list, try reading them out loud, looking in the mirror, or on a video call to friends, at least 3 times. So this is sexualizing. It's sexualizing. Yeah, because a child who is not yet sexually active is now going to enact sexual discourse with another child because they've been asked to by a teacher.
I was going to ask you about that. This is incredibly delicate, of course, and I believe I can speak for you when I say that part of your problem is that you don't think one size fits all. I mean, any kind of exploration of issues of this nature have to be catered for specific groups of children, age appropriately, and each individual child will come from a different background. So of course it's a bit of a maze for even the most seasoned and experienced educator to navigate. So I think we're agreed that there are no easy quick fix solutions, but
that's right.
It strikes me when you're reading that particular resource out, getting children to read out loud sexual acts that they would like to perform with another child, the underlying assumption is that the child is ready for that level of mature sexual activity and articulation. And of course, depending on the child and depending on the age, I mean, children are by definition less ready than adults. And in that resource, it seems that they're primed to be completely ready, completely able to cope with the demands of that activity.
Exactly that. They're assuming that. And I think one of the reasons that is being assumed is because sex positivity has an academic basis. And if you read the academia relating to that, it's very interested in breaking taboos. It's interested in seeing past the purpose of the age of consent. It's interested in considering the child as not innocent, but as a sexual being. These are theories. Sometimes I believe that they are interpreted in ways that are even quite dangerous or permit nefarious interest, actually. And although very often they're forwarded by people who think it's in the best interest, especially of girls, and there's a strong feminist theme to this. It comes out of 1980s sort of feminist argument in America. And we need, I think, as parents, and certainly I think as a society, we need to be better informed about this. We need to know what it is that these teachers are wanting our children to think politically, sexually, socially, and we should be part of the dialogue on that. And you're right, it's not a clear-cut thing exactly when you introduce things to different ages and children with different needs. But it shouldn't be taken over by one monopoly position towards one particular ideological set of thinking.
Right, and so promoting a culture of transparency where there's more open communication between parents and teachers and schools can only do good, surely, because if you have these sorts of privacy and copyright restrictions on parents being able to access materials, it's only going to engender mistrust and a feeling that perhaps something's going on that oughtn't to be going on. And you do have, obviously, in multicultural Britain, a wide range of parents with different concerns and sense of propriety as to what is age appropriate and indeed what schools should be taking it upon themselves to teach. I mean, I think a lot of parents still, in this day and age, see that they have a strong role to play in deciding when a child is ready for certain conversations. So it can be a bit galling to have that all taken away and dealt with behind closed doors, so to speak.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that we're heading towards, heading down a path that we can probably see ahead of us is very much happening in America. There is political argument arriving at the school gates. There is upset from parents who feel they've lost control of a really important area of their social life and their children's education. And I think it would be really wise for this country to avoid that political argument in our classrooms. And in order to do that, we really need the Department for Education to step forward and start creating some parameters, some much clearer guides. At the moment, the DFE simply says, for example, that with regard to equality teaching and sex education, that LGBT must be introduced, for example, across all lessons or wherever it's appropriate. It doesn't have to be located in one particular special lesson, so it can be embedded across the curriculum. And that must be taught at a timely moment by all schools. And then it just really stops. That's all it says. And that's an open door for anything from very extreme ideas to things which are age inappropriate and which activists want the children to believe. And teachers are really on the back foot on this, and I sympathise with teachers because they're not experts in LGBT, and in a good point being, actually maybe LGB and T all need different forms of teaching or different pieces of information.
It's not self-explanatory. It's not a subject. It's not like geography or early modern British history. LGBT
it doesn't. What is its scholastic basis?
And different identities and different political issues, and many of them, as we've seen in recent years in Britain, the concept of gender and gender identity is not just contentious, but recent case law, as Maya Forstadter's Employment Tribunal taught us, that actually people who have reservations about the idea of gender identity are protected under the Equality Act because it is a valid belief.
Okay. All right, brilliant. That was a really, really good video. That was Claire Page there. We did actually have the honour of meeting Claire when myself and Kimberly and a couple of others from PCP Wales were invited to Parliament when they launched the Bad Law Project. Brilliant people. Unfortunately, Claire Page's case, it got ruled as not in the public interest, as they always do. So our next speaker, a lot of you would already know him. Our next speaker, he's an international human rights lawyer, barrister rather. He has done a lot for the people, which is why we call him the People's Barrister. So without further ado, massive round of applause for Paul Diamond. Woo!
My goodness, I look brutally handsome in that picture. I don't know what's happened over the years, but obviously the ravages of age have hurt it badly, so I apologise for the incongruence. I did once look like that. Yeah, well, I'm just going to have a general chat. I'm going to talk a bit about a case, as you know I did for Kim. I'll just do a bit of a general introduction because I just sort of give you a few background stories, just for entertainment purposes, of course. And then I just want to mention a bit about the case. On the, I started doing these cases, and it wasn't because of any legal skill. It was really because I I think I was the only guy at the time prepared to do it. There was a great fear on the land. There still is a fear on the land. And the first sort of, I've been doing quite a few cases over the years, but when I first specialised in religious liberty, am I gone? I'm back. I feel like it's been a rock star. That was a mistaken career. Hey, baby. You can get used to it up here. But I remember the first case that sort of began a road for me. And some of you will or won't remember this. There was a man called Harry Hammond, and I think it was about 201, 203. And he stood outside a gay bar. You best remember it was very different then, and the Human Rights Act has had a very corrosive effect on our liberties. But going back to that date, this 70-year-old individual, which at the time I thought was very old, I'm now thinking it's remarkably young, but at the time, he stood outside a gay pub. He unfurled a banner saying, "Stop homosexuality, stop lesbianism, turn to Jesus." And a crowd of young people, both homosexuals and non-homosexuals, assaulted him, threw him to the ground, poured water over him, took his banner off him. And then the police turned up and arrested Harry Hammond and for inciting his own attack. Now, I'm just trying to ask you to travel back in time to that era. I was utterly appalled and disgusted that a 70-year-old man had been attacked. The police came round and arrested, not defended the 70-year-old man, arrested him. And then that phrase, it became very common after that. You incited your own attack. If you exercised your rights of free speech, of dissent, you were a target. So that was sort of the beginning of my road into sort of initially religious liberty cases. And I was so disgusted. I remember I phoned up the lawyer. It was down in Bournemouth, and he just said to me, "Take the case off me, it's a hot potato." And then when I did that case, I was warned by my chambers, barristers' chambers, if you do that case, there could be consequences, which is a very foolish thing to say to me, because I'm one of the guys that would go, "Yeah, okay, bring it on." So that set me off on a road. That was rapidly followed a few years later. I got involved. I started it off and did it all and was involved to the Employment Tribunal. I don't know if some of you can remember this, the older ones. I did the BA Cross case, where British Airways wouldn't allow somebody to wear a cross. And that was a great case, as you can imagine. Just by way of background, I won't go into all the details, because actually there was some legal reasons I did her up to the Employment Tribunal and then switched to another client, but I won't go into that. But anyway, on that road of that case, 13 British judges, up to our Supreme Court, held that the cross was a piece of jewellery, it wasn't a religious symbol, and so 13 British judges from the best of our land, they all go to Oxford, as you know. That's the sort of requirement. I'm slightly being a bit flippant, but they're not uneducated individuals. And anyway, then we appeared in the European Court, and we had a Polish judge who basically said, "I never heard such nonsense in all my life." Now, this Polish judge was, of course, from a communist country, and he was also... I think his brother used to be on the Central Committee of the Polish Communist Party, and they're very friendly in Europe, much more friendly than our judges. You have a cup of tea with them and you have a little chat with them. Over here, the judges just throw books at you and sort of stuff. And anyway, I remember thinking at the time, if you need a judge from a former communist country to tell you the cross is a Christian symbol under Article 9 of the European Convention, you've got a pretty desperate affairs in this country. And then I did a final story I'm giving you. I did a case of a man called Stephen Copsey, who didn't want to work on a Sunday. You may think that's quite normal. He's a Christian. He didn't want to work on a Sunday. And so we took it to court. And he's one of these very quiet type Christians, Stephen Copsey, very determined, solid in his views, but rather shy. And you wouldn't realize he would have that strength of character, if that made sense. One of those individuals. Anyway, so he's giving evidence in court, and he's very sort of meek and mild. And you've got to give me a bit of poetic license. I have to entertain you a bit. Anyway, we're in court, and all of a sudden the judge went insanely crazy, and he started screaming at this Stephen Copsey. Tell me where it says in your Bible you can sit at home and watch football while your colleagues have to go into work on a Sunday. You tell me where you can be lazy and let other people work. That's the judge. And it's one of those things in court. It's normally quite a sort of quiet little event. And you sort of occasionally when temperatures are lost. Most barristers, when that happens, they throw themselves under the desk and throw their wig over the top. It means it's all over. You didn't wear a wig in this case, so I couldn't quite do that. And when someone shouts like that, I mean, the whole court went silent. What was probably no more than 30 seconds, when you could hear a pin drop, it felt like an excruciating 8 minutes of torment, Anyway, then Stephen, by the way, at that stage, I had a sort of press following, so the press galleries were all full and all that. And anyway, Stephen Copsey just looks at the judge and goes, the 10 Commandments, number 4. Now, I'm actually glad that you can do that, because the 10th Commandment, as we all know, and actually a very important moral code, probably the greatest moral code from the Jews, the most civilizing force one of the most civilizing forces in our civilization. But actually, the 4th commandment is keep the Sabbath day holy. Now, you had a bit of a giggle here. A lot of people wouldn't know that. Someone said 10 Commandments, number 4. They would be a lot more blanker now. This was a few years ago, this. Anyway, in the court then, everybody just collapsed laughing. I mean, everybody knew the 4th commandment then. Everybody knew it said, keep the Sabbath holy. That's where it says. It's that where the judge, when he was saying, tell me where in the Bible you can sit at home. He went, number 4. And the whole journalistic sort of back row collapsed laughing, and it was sort of, everyone couldn't control it. And that kept the judge totally silent for the rest of the case. Not a beep out of him, because not only was he rude, he was ignorantly rude. And I rather enjoyed that. And then, of course, I had the adventure of meeting. I brought one of my arguments in court for me, but we met a number of people, obviously the great Kim Isherwood, and she needs no introduction, but there were a number of other people. There was Adele, who I've just had the beauty. I'm going to give you too many stories. I met Adele, Grace Patton, I'm not sure I ever fully met her, just court and stuff, Mark Thomas and Kate Bloom, and they are all here. Woo! Actually, I've got another crazy story to tell you. This is my storytelling time. Kim said if I don't entertain you, she's not going to give me the 50p for the chips tonight. I have been to Cwmbran. I was here last time. This is the only second time I've been here, I have to confess. It's not kind of the place you normally go, even when you go to Wales. You have to understand that. I was here in 1988, and I had hair in those days. Can you believe it? I was here in 1988 when Cwmbran Magistrates Court, this is another story of mine, made a reference from the local B&Q that if they couldn't open their shops on a Sunday, there had to be a reference to Europe. And they made a reference to Europe, and I got involved in that case because I was involved with the Structured by the Keep Sunday Special campaign in those days. But I'm just remembering, I was back here all those years ago, and it was actually, it wasn't an unlawful reference, but they weren't meant to do it. It was all very strange. But actually, Cwmbran Magistrates Court kicked off 4 years of litigation, kept me quite busy, so I'm quite grateful, kicked off 4 years of litigation. Do you remember when the shops could open or not open? And it was all from this place here. And I was in the magistrates' court. I was really just observing, because I was quite young in those days, and I was just sent on behalf of Keep Sunday Special to observe. And I remember coming down here, and it's sort of, from that little courtroom in those days, which was not particularly impressive, it kicked off the whole Sunday trading fight. And yes, but anyway, back to story. We got involved with challenging the Welsh Government on the religion and relationship and sexuality education that the Welsh Government were introducing. I'm just going to make some sort of general comments. First, I don't want to sound sycophantic, but let me be sycophantic. I've got to give praise to Kim and the team. They were actually fearless. It's a great pleasure having a client who's fearless. You know the reality. I'm scared to go to court. Oh, what are the risks for me? Is someone going to pay all my fees? Can you find a rich benefactor? I'm not going to do it unless I go to one of these organizations. I do this. No, none of that was Kim. Bring it on. They can do their worst. And you don't know what a pleasure that is for one of us barristers. We're not looking over our shoulders. I was thinking, poor woman, she'd go totally bankrupt. She's got no idea what she's doing. She'd be on the street corner rattling a tin. But, if she's up for it, she's up for it. So, and look, she's been prospered and she's made a name for herself. And often what people fail to realize, people are so scared nowadays, what they fail to realize is if you make a stand, we've got a bullying government, and bullies are always scared of people who make a stand. And when I did that BA Cross case, well, I won't go into the details, but you can imagine this lady who won't wear a cross. Well, I've heard over the years they've culled British Airways from its height of 100,000 in the early 2000s to 50,000 employees. But there'll be one employee they won't dare touch. There'll be one employee they're not stupid enough to touch. So what people don't realize is if you make a stand, the bullies actually often get scared. But they are bullies, and bullies, they want, it's cancel culture. I know people in it's not a joke. Overnight, and everyone's so scared that all your so-called friends don't want to speak to you. All the people you've worked with who you've thought would support you, they're not there. So we did the case and we challenged relationship and sexuality education. And I think the lead up to it, and I'm sort of just trying to review it, because I don't want to, obviously I'm not going to babble about law. I'll read a few bits out. But society's changing from a sort of true liberal society where people can disagree, have different views and are respected. Liberalism began to change. I began to notice it. It wasn't enough that you could choose your own way. And that's actually fundamentally a Judeo-Christian position, that people have the integrity and the responsibility to find their own way and choose their own version of the good. But liberalism changed, and it's moved that every organization or group had to conform to the government's view of good. Or you wouldn't get a grant, or you won't be registered, or this will be happen to you. And then now all individuals, we must all conform to the government's version of the good. And unfortunately, Kim had enough of that. So liberalism has very much been changing, and I'm just reading. These are sort of my notes. I hope that I've chosen good bits. I don't want to be too legal, but some of the things I said in court. Neutrality and impartiality are impossible to achieve, I said, with my sternest look. Well, it's in my appeal notice. I said it in my appeal note. In sexual ethics, because of the breakdown in consensus. It was not possible during previous periods of greater consensus. The assertion that the teaching will be neutral and impartial is implausible. A right of excusal, the removal of children, is more necessary as society fragments. And that's, that is something that is happening. It's very difficult in some of these cases running arguments because there was a period where there was a general consensus. Everybody knew there was conscientious exemptions to war. But now it's so fragmented. It's whether you want to eat vegan food or, go to a grammar school. The consensus of right and wrong is going, and it makes these arguments difficult. And then I went on to say, the parental power to determine the content of their children's education is particularly important in cases of philosophical, political, religious, or moral controversy. The meaning of life, right and wrong, good and bad, beneficial or harmful. So, these are very controversial areas. What do we think? What do we think is right and wrong, good and bad? What is beneficial or harmful? And this right must be ceded to the private citizen by the democratic state if it is to remain liberal. So I was labouring that thing I was telling you of the transfer of a country from a truly liberal state where people can choose these questions for themselves to a state where we must all conform to the common good or be cancelled. And that is where we are. So we argued that, and we went into court. And actually, what's at stake, and that's why, PCP and other groups are very important. What's at stake is not just RSE. It's, they can teach whatever they want. They're going to teach whatever they want. They're going to go further and further and further on controversial subjects, into your homes and homeschooling, into what you teach your children on morality and wrong. They're going to go in there because there's no concept of how a democratic liberal state functions. It's simply Parliament can do whatever it wants on 15 minutes with a 28-year-old MP who's never had a job. That's the brutal reality of it. And, and it's all very, very politicized. One of the cases we quoted in Kim's case, when we argued about, there's a case called Campbell and Cozzens from 1982 on corporal punishment. It's 1982, it's a long time ago, and a mother said, oh, my boy may be corporally punished at this school. And he'd never been corporally punished, never been at risk of corporal punishment, but he might in this fantasy scenario. And of course, the European Court struck that down. You were violating their right to education because they wanted to stop corporal punishment. That's the name of the game. And so in 1986, the decision was in 82, but to conform with our international obligations, in 1986, corporal punishment in state schools was abolished in the United Kingdom. Now, I just give you that example. Imagine if somebody said, conversely, I'm not going to send my child to school. They might just potentially hear something in the RSE lesson which I don't like. Well, it'll be pretty grim nowadays. It's a fight nowadays. And, I give this talk now in the knowledge that the relationship of sexuality education was fully over the whole school environment. They had officers, it was to be integrated into every class, from mathematics to, it was a full-scale introduction of this type of hard sexuality education. And I give that now, and that's where Britain was heading to. And there was a report by the Joint Committee on Human Rights in Parliament in 2007, which said children need to be protected from religious teachings that doesn't approve of same-sex relationships. So you can see where Britain has been going over all these years. And it's been sad and it's been depressing, mainly because there's no uplifting of the human spirit, if you get my meaning. There's no uplifting of human dignity. There's no responsibility and ownership of your moral decisions. You're cattled into a position where you have to agree with what the government agrees, or the government gets very, very angry with you. And but I mean, I say that because there is a new president in the United States. They can't teach us in American schools on the first day of his presidency. He's abolished every government department. He's abolished the diversity, equality, and inclusion department. And you know what? Nobody cares. I mean, all this stuff, a lot of people just don't care, because when the pressure's off, like when the Soviet Union stands down, people go, whippy, you've gone. I'm just going to close. Now, I hope I can. This was another argument I raised. I've got to sort of tell you some of the stuff that happened in the case. Otherwise, as I said, I might get some fish and chips tonight if I play it right. But this was one of my closing submissions. I, by the way, I just sort of looked at it as I was prepping for this. Some of the arguments, I thought, my goodness, they were good, if I say so myself. Anyway, I said, first, parents have the right to be informed of the content of education provided and access to materials to be used. If parents cannot establish with certainty, and not simply by word of mouth or second-hand report, what their children are being taught, any exercise of rights would be nugatory. Secondly, they have a right to object without prejudice to them or their child. It is important to emphasize that parental disagreement with the content of teaching materials is not itself a ground for suspecting they are failing in their duty as parents. It may instead be an indicator that the school is acting unlawfully. Thirdly, they have a right to have their objections addressed reasonably, either by withdrawal of material offensive to them or explanation of how it is balanced with equal regard for their own opinions and not presented as the single truth. Fourthly, they have the ultimate right to withdraw if their objections are not reasonably addressed. This is the only way of ensuring that the priority in determining the content of education rests with the parents and not the state. Any enforcement action against them for breach of their Section 7 duty must take account of their fundamental rights. I hope that was just a submission. So in conclusion, we know we've got to fight. We know, I mean, I used to, I don't know, you're going to beat me up afterwards, but I'm an honorary Welsh citizen through Kim. But I am a tourist here, but you've had a Welsh government in Wales for an awful long time. And actually, I don't think these one-party states are working well. And it's the same in Scotland. They're dominated by the SNP, and there's no the calibre is poor often of the candidates, the debate is poor of the candidates, and they live without fear of accountability to the electorate. And there's a great sense of powerlessness. I think all I can say is we're going to have a fight on our hands. We're going to have to fight for what we believe in. But there's got to be an element of risk. You've got to, I'm not just saying this, you've got to be a bit of Kim. I mean, I would love us to find a billionaire. I mean, you know, we may find a billionaire. And I'd love to say, if all your costs are paid and everything's done for you, you'll be amazed how many people run forward, because that's what they really believe, but they're scared of the consequences. But you know, in this world, you know, whether it's the Soviet dissidents or the people who stand up and risk prosecution, you have to go forward with support and a group, but it's not an easy road. It's not an easy road. And many of those cases I gave you, Harry Hammond, the first one I said, well, he was assaulted. Great. And he actually he died very shortly afterwards. And the police refused to accept that assault was linked to his death. The BA Cross lady, well, she took on British Airways. You tried taking on British Airways. And the other case, Stephen Copsey, when that's the Sunday working guy, when I was representing him, he'd been sacked, you know? He'd lost his job because he didn't want to work Sundays. So I'm not going to, there's no, obviously it's good if there's a good way of doing it, but you've got to be brave, and I know you're members of the bravest place in Wales, so let's bring them down.
So that's Paul, our barrister.
Is he going to have time for questions?
He proved that the government's barristers and the government were lying about the UNESCO and the rollout, folks.
Say his name, Paul.
Let's get round into a position because you won't get this on the BBC, mind?
Well, thank you, and do send me the video clips because my wife won't believe this happened. And secondly, the concert's going to be next week because me and Kim are going to form a rock band. Just to say, you've got to get out there and support Kim because this is just the beginning. If we win, they will appeal. And when we win, they will appeal, and they'll fight it with your money all the way. So we've got to use all we can, and we have to fight for the rights of, in this case, we're fighting for the rights of children. I can't actually say too much because, as your humble barrister, it's not a contradiction, humble barrister, trust me, but as your humble barrister, I've just got to slightly be restrained in public conversation. So thank you for all your work. Thank you for your support. This is the first time I've had anything like this, believe it or not.
That was fantastic. What a day that was. Well, 2 days. So this actually brings us to the end of the second part. We're now going to be going for lunch. We're meant to come back at 2. We still saying 2, Kim, or should I say a bit later? We'll have an hour, so that'll be 2:20. Make sure you're back here sharpish, and we'll continue the rest of the conference. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for that.